Empire. Oh, and Lucio you here, put an Arena of Blood here for Handskin. Hopefully they can kill him with a Lacuna Blade. Okay, at least they got rid of the Kato. Limbus is forced to TP from a Roar to get S4 out of the way. They hit him with a cookie. But
I was born in Barcelona. No, I was born in Barcelona 24 years ago. When I was like 2-3 years old, my parents, God bless their souls, they sent me to an English-speaking school. Obviously, most schools in Barcelona are Spanish or rather Catalan-speaking schools. My parents decided that they wanted me to know English, hence my accent. And so I went there for like the first 15 years of my life. Then I graduated and I studied in Scotland. But around like when I was 14 years old, 13 years old or so, I started getting interested in esports. I've always played Dota since I was like 10 or 9. I don't remember. I've Dota 1, of course. And I've esports in Dota 1 for quite a while as well. Like I used to like catch the YouTube replays on SEA. I used to watch the Lumi casts they would just put on YouTube. They would have to like record the replay on Warcraft 3. But around like when I was 14, I started to actually want to get into the world, and I became a volunteer for Dota Cinema as a writer, and I was there for like a year or 2 years while I also casted on the side. And so back then I would like contact tournaments, like amateur tournaments, right? Like tier 3. I guess now they would be considered tier 3 tournaments. Amateur tournaments that were up on the ticket. I would look for the tickets in Dota TV because back then you had to buy a ticket. And I would contact the tournament that was running whatever amateur league and be like, hey, can I cast your tournament? Do you guys need casters? Obviously, the ones that had no English cast, and I would offer it for free. I think the first tournament I ever did, I will never forget, was the Malaysia Brunei local league, season 2 specifically. I got to cast. It was one of the. I even got to cast Miracle back in the day. I got to cast one of the Warrior Gaming Unity. Those guys back in the day, Nana, which is now Moo, and all these guys back when they were starting, because this is like a local league. And yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I started getting more like smaller gigs in English while I was also writing articles, and eventually became editor for Dota Cinema. During that time, maybe around like I want to say TI3, no, TF4. I interviewed one of the main Spanish casters as part of Dota Cinema, and he was a Mexican guy by the name of Diazatot, or Carlos, as I know him. I've known him for quite a long time now, good friend of mine. And when I interviewed him, he's like, hey, I like your voice. I didn't know you casted, but would you like to try it in Spanish? And until then, I didn't really know that you could cast in Spanish. I thought English was the only language. I didn't really understand much about the esports world. I just said, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. I thought it was just an amateur thing. Turns out he was getting invited to TI. Turns out it was a very big deal. And I enjoyed the people I work with much more in Spanish. I also got more opportunities, obviously, because I just got very lucky, honestly. I started to make a name for myself there. I left English casting on the side. Dota Cinema died and the writers died, so I had to, make a life out of myself. And I continued casting in Spanish for like relatively low wages until like I was like 22 or so when I graduated from uni. And then I studied software engineering, but I specialized in like app development, particularly for usability apps, for people that have like disabilities, like blind people, deaf people, people with dyslexia, people with learning disabilities, these kind of things. I wanted to get into that. I actually wanted to go into apps. I was thinking of going into the BBC and everything because they had like a position as a tech, not as a producer. But the day I graduated, like 2 days afterwards, EPICENTER offered me a job as the resident English caster. I've been working with them for quite a while now, just doing like smaller tournaments, tier 2, and they wanted to take a chance on me, which I was very, very happy for. They wanted to move me to Malaysia and take a chance there, which was quite crazy for me, as I never expected I would ever live in Asia. I had never visited Asia before that. I'd only been around Europe, maybe a bit to America. I just said, yeah, let's go for it. Took a plunge, and here I am. I got to cast a lot of gigs ever since. Got to do a couple of lands locally in Malaysia. I did one in Mumbai as well. Yeah, just been growing ever since. The Spanish casting was left a bit to the side. I only do it occasionally for like the DPC leagues and whatever, but I still try to keep it as much as possible. But now my main source of income is definitely the English casting. And I just do the Spanish casting for fun and to help my friends out and to try to grow the league, etc., etc. That's a bit of a summary, I would say.
Imagine a shark with like a prop engine behind it,
like a motor.
Like a motor. Yeah.
I'm quite a privileged person to be able to say that I don't really care that much about money. Like when I was in uni, I would get by. Like my parents helped me out, and I would do odd jobs, and I had enough. And since I went to Scotland, uni's there is free. So I've taken loan, which is called SAS in Scotland. As a European citizen, you can apply to that. I wasn't too worried about making a living, so I could make my choices less on money and success and more on personal choice, right? And the reality was that when I was going up in the English scene, right, I started to do tier 2 tournaments and stuff. It was not the kind of casting I wanted to do. When I was casting in the Spanish scene, because the Spanish scene had quite literally nothing. Like I was there from what you would call the start, right? I was casting with them for ages when there was literally no money in the scene. Because of that, I think a lot of especially the veteran casters, knew that there was nothing to aspire to. There's no golden mountain that you could get to if you were good enough. You had to make your way, and you kind of had to do it with everyone, because without everyone's cooperation, you just couldn't make it, right? You kind of had to ally with people. And so in the Spanish scene, I felt like, I think begrudgingly to a lot of people, but in general, everyone had to cooperate because of this, right? Due to the lack of resources. And so I felt like I was building something there. When I got to be part of the first, I did the Kiev Major in Spanish, which was the first studio-led Spanish production of a Valve event. Because before they would just invite like 2 casters, put them in the dark room and go cast, like they did with all these languages. But that was like a big production, like the level you see nowadays for the TPC and stuff. It was a huge milestone, and being able to build that, being able to be part of that, being able to actually further the scene, that's why I was in it. I wasn't in it to try to make a job for myself. I thought I was going to leave it eventually anyway. I wanted to become a software engineer. I didn't think I was going to do anything but try to leave a good footprint in the scene while I was doing that. And that's what the Spanish scene represented to me. In addition to people being, I guess, more my speed, because culturally we got along better. And in the English scene, it was completely different. In the English scene, it was cutthroat. It was competition constantly. I had constantly had to choose. Like, I would constantly get passed over for jobs because I would say, no, I'm not going to do this because this would harm someone else. Or no, I'm going to do this because they've told me this is bad for the industry, et cetera, et cetera. And people that I was competing against did not care. Mind you, those people are not part of the scene anymore. They're not people that, like, I'm not calling anyone out that's currently the scene. I think it's changed a lot. But when I was starting to grow up, it was kind of like that. Because of that, I just, it didn't appeal to me. It didn't appeal to me to have to compete to try to make a name for myself, because I didn't think that I was that special, nor do I think so now. I was there to do something positive for the scene. And if the scene didn't need that, it didn't need me, or the scene wasn't ready for something positive, or you had to do negative things to get to the point where you can actually do something important, then I was not interested. So for a long time, until I got the opportunity to do something that I thought mattered, I just stayed in Spanish, because that's where I was having a positive impact. I tried to make the scene better. And I don't think that opportunity came to me in English until like when I graduated uni, more or less.
In fact, the Senking plus Coddle lane should be destroying actually on bottom.
Well, there it is.
Look.
Right on cue.
No, not really, to be honest. 'Cause I feel like, to me, the opportunity that Epicenter was weird, because I got to do the group stages of Epicenter with Gareth in Joint Dota Studios, right, in Berlin. And that's because, remember, there was the group stages, sorry, the qualifiers, right? First there was the qualifiers, and the casters that did the qualifiers, well, because it was a contest or whatever, they got selected to do the group stages of the main event. And so for the qualifiers, I think that was the thing that cemented me, or that gave me opportunities. The qualifiers are pretty big, and it was more of the confidence, because I got to cast with Gareth, and we were both play-by-plays. Because I'm not, I mean, I work in Spanish as an analyst, but I'm not an analyst. I'm not meant to be an analyst. I'm meant to be a play-by-play. And working with him was incredible. He's really good. It flowed so smoothly, and it gave me the confidence that I actually could do this, right? Which I didn't really have until then. But then, unfortunately, when we got into the group stages, it just wasn't good casts. It just wasn't good, because we were separated from each other. It was not in a LAN setting anymore. We had huge delays. We had issues with Discord. We had issues with Discord constantly, with disconnecting. And so the cast went bad. And so any sort of like diamond in the rough people could have seen in the qualifiers immediately left the moment that they saw the other casts, which were, I acknowledge them, they were just bad. They were just not the quality of cast that I would like to give off. So I don't feel like Epicenter was that big because of that kind of blunder towards the end. I don't think it was really anyone's fault. I think it was more of a tech issue and kind of a limitation, but it happened. It was more of a confidence booster for me, saying, I can still do this. I have something to offer to the scene. Let me see how this goes, and let me keep trying. That's how it felt to me, more than opening job opportunities, because they didn't really happen because of Epicenter. I don't think anyone's ever talked to me about Epicenter besides you.
I was like kind of expecting last
Oh
game.
no, Limp, you went the wrong way. Limp finds an Enchantress. Now he's gonna hear the base, trying to heal as much as he can.
I don't know if I've ever realized that, if I'm honest with you. Every day I wake up and I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the... Yeah, I don't know. Because like how my career went, it just kind of... I got really lucky in the beginning. I'll admit it, especially with Spanish contacts. I just got very lucky, and I got opportunities I didn't really deserve back then. And I took the best out of those opportunities and learned, but I just didn't deserve them. And so I just kind of kept rolling with it. I just, I remember with one of my first studio, I was in a studio originally, then the studio in Spanish, and then the studio like it disappeared. And then one person from the studio invited me to a new one. I didn't have to look for it. Like the guy just invited me because he's liked me. Like, okay, fine, I'll go to here. And then this other studio was gonna die. And then someone from this studio invited me to a third studio. I'm like, okay, I'll go with you, you know. But there was never any choice or any mindfulness or any sort of like decision making. I just kind of rolled with it. I kept going, and I would cast like 12, 14, 16 hours a day. So that's what I did. Any other choices that came with a job, that was not up to me. I would cast, and my only goal was to get good at casting. And so at one point it became a prideful thing, right? Like I just want to be offered the best cast I can. I don't think I'm even close to that yet. And every day I just look at my cast and I keep casting and I keep going. And I guess I got very lucky. I don't guess. I know I got very lucky, and then I kept getting opportunities even though I didn't search for them, because I was just trying to improve very hard on my cast. And even to this day, I don't know. I don't know if I want to pursue a career in esports. I know you have a lot of stories of people like, I sold my house and MLP, a big fan, by the way. I sold my house. I wanted to pursue this career, and I admire those people. I like MLP's conviction. I talk to him often. He boosts me, not like in Dota. I mean, like as in life, right? He doesn't actually boost my MMR. We always lose together. Shout out to MLP. People like that I admire, but I just don't have that kind of conviction, because I often find that the moment you decide that you're dedicating your career to esports is the moment that you start making the wrong choices. Because the moment I decide that I am more important than, say, the game or whatever, the moment I decide that this is my job and I want to do this, is the moment that I run out of options. And that if I'm ever presented with a choice where like I will harm myself, or it's a choice where I can boost myself but harm the industry, or harm myself but boost the industry, I will pick the former the moment I have that as a choice. The moment I think this is my career, the moment this is my livelihood, the moment this determines whether I eat or not. So how I do this is I always think in my mind, I can always fall back on software engineering. I did finish the career after all. I can always fall back and do some other career and study something else. I have savings for a reason. And I'll just continue this path as long as I can and as long as I'm good. And the moment that I stop being an asset to the scene, the moment I stop being good, the moment I consider myself too weak to move on, or that I haven't improved in a long time, or whatever it is the moment I'm leaving it. No regrets left behind.
Solar Bind now out. Faith Beyond going to go for the Epicenter play. He's canceled it, though. That did force out the Dissemblate from Koikva. Stomp here is going to find it.
I feel like to us, COVID was like, when I say us, I mean Seek and myself, because obviously we come in as a pair when it came to the COVID time, right? I don't feel like we benefited as much as other casters. Like I think MLP, for example, benefited a lot. Again, no diss to him. I just think the scene, it benefited him. I do think that what Seek and I benefited from was more like just getting the DPC. Like the DPC leagues to me benefited me more than COVID. Like even if COVID hadn't happened, as long as I get to do the DPC, that would have already been a saving grace. And I don't think we got DPC because of COVID. When we got chances due to COVID, like the tournaments that we did during COVID, Realms Collide, for example, which was one of the first like big productions we got because I had worked in the Spanish team for years. Like the reason why we got that tournament was because the producers of that tournament are really good friends of mine. I asked them if I could make a really solid English production. I bid for the rights and everything. Like we paid for that tournament, right? It wasn't like a freebie or anything like that. It wasn't like they selected us or anything like that. That one was not due to COVID, and I can't remember any other tournaments we got that were particularly due to the COVID situation. I think COVID can improve the chances for Tier 2. But I think for us, it was really the DPC season 2 or season 1, season 2. The fact that they gave us second division and the fact that everyone decided to pay for the lower division coverage, that to me saved me. That was the biggest.
Like they all do. He charges the Rolling Thunder, Burrow Strike as well. They do find the poor Void Spirit. He's out of mana. Quick was going to die.
Yes. I mean, I've always done that. Like, I know SA is like what I'm known for, because obviously I'm a Spanish speaker, right? But like when I was doing Spanish coverage, I would always be known as the European guy, because that was my time zone, right? So I know SA because I've worked with them for so long, but I'm not alien to other regions at all. I think the only region I was weak with maybe like 2 years ago was NA, and recently I've gone to do a lot of NA tournaments. So I'm pretty confident in my coverage of most regions. I do a lot of research.
What they'll do is they push mid, the right call as well here, honestly. Bar any jokes you might make. Another Burrow Strike with Rolling Thunder. Earth Splitter though. And it could be I'm in trouble. No, Sunder just in time.
I think I just know the people. Like I'm biased towards SA because I know the people in the scene, like to a personal level, right? I like telling the story. To me, whenever you know that years ago they used to share like on Reddit, you'd see the English cast of like something like SEA or SA whatever, and then they share occasionally clips of like, look at the passion the Tagalog cast has, or the passion the Spanish cast has, right? People used to think it's just because they're so proud of the region. I mean, I'm sorry to break the spell, but at least for SA, it was not like that. For SA, when a Spanish team used to qualify, at least from a lot of my friends who were, again, Spanish casters, if the Spanish team or the Peruvian team qualified, that meant they would get to eat that month. I have a couple of friends that used to literally only eat a meal a day until a Peruvian team qualified, and then they got to eat 3 meals a day. Now it's different. Now the situation is much easier. But back then, that was the situation. So to me, no wonder I'm biased, or I love SA, or I have to study it, or I have to research it. I've tried to help so many of these teams succeed for free, not as a coach. I mean, I was technically a coach for a couple of teams. I've worked as an analyst for a couple of teams in SA, but I just did this out of the pure love for my friends that are casting. Because I want them to be able to eat. I don't want them to have to suffer in poverty because, oh, this time South America sucked again. Guess there's no money for you. Obviously, DPC fixed this, right? But back in the day, that's what I built my love for. I know all these people personally, and my success is to some degree intertwined with their success. So I got to know their storylines. I got to talk to them as people. I got to know their styles, know why their styles worked, why their styles didn't. And I've been involved in the scene for so long, not just as a caster, but as a tournament organizer as well. So back then, when I was making like tier 3 tournaments for like amateur scene, those people are now in a tier 1 scene. So I just got to cast them a long time. So it's just a more of a, I've been here for so long. I've been here for so long that if I don't know them, then clearly there's a leak in my brain. I don't think it's so much a passion for them. It's more of a where life took me, I guess.
The epicenter, we end up Blink Dagger. We still have Sunder, however, on Ahmed, so he should be fine. However, the Sanking will not be. Caught by the Fiends, could have been killed off. That stun doesn't come out in time.
I mean, the scene has improved to leaps and bounds. You know, I back when we were doing tournaments back then, I still remember like a tournament that we did. It was like a $1,000 tournament, right? And we had like quite literally $1,000. It was maybe 6 years ago, and we had the top teams South America with $1,000. That was the prize pool. The winner would get 500. That was like insane. People like we obviously drew a couple of favors, but it was insane that we could get that amount of money. And now with like a simple Rampage series or whatever, we get 10K tournaments just like that, and that's not even tier 1. That's like tier 2. The difference in price pools has increased a ridiculous amount, and the recognition of the scene has increased a lot. And this has made the scene better because the more recognition the scene gets, the more sponsors, both endemic, non-endemic, and also international, like say Beast Coast, get interested in the scene. The more they get interested in the scene, the bigger the scene becomes. And though most people will just think, oh, that means more investment, but that's true. But the bigger the scene becomes, especially for those involved in it, it means that the easier it is to kick out the bad actors in the scene. Back in the day, I love that region. I love the players, but there was a lot of bad faith actors there. People like organizers that would take the tournament money and run. Final Match back in the day was known for that. We had team managers that would do that as well, or orgs or teams that would not pay their players. Even though there was a contract and everything, they just violated it. Who cares? They're esports players. They had nobody to go to. They had no law savviness. There's no international community to help them because they don't speak English. So they were just there left to their own devices. The bigger the scene became and the more formalized it became, the more professional it became, just due to the amount of investment, the easier it was to push all these bad faith actors out of the scene, and the easier it was to start trusting into SA tournaments. To not have to check who is the guy in charge of the tournament, like literally check his name and ask some of the veterans, hey, what do you think of this guy? Is he trustworthy? And just go and say, no, I'm just going to put the money and trust that it's going to get done. Because now there's laws and everything regulating it. That was the whole body. That's a whole community that regulates it. And that to me was the biggest change. The DPC helped that a lot, of course. And in general, it became just like the other scenes. It went from being essentially the Wild West of Dota with no money whatsoever into being a relatively professional and relatively formalized scene with a fair amount of foreign investment and an ever-growing number of players. Because it's the only region where the players are still growing in Dota. South America, Peru specifically. They're constantly growing. And finally, I feel like we're actually tapping this market, which hasn't been touched in so long. I'll share a quick anecdote that I always love sharing. This is one of my favorite ones. It's not like as epic as the 4DR. Or, by the way, I meant to say this in the clip, but his name is technically ADR because Adriano, right? But I say 4DR for English speakers so they understand. But it is ADR. There's some Brazilians out there that'll get offended otherwise. So I got you, boys. I know it's ADR. I know it's Adriano. But anyway, there's a little anecdote I love sharing about Hector, the carrier from Beast Coast, right? When Hector was first starting in like to get big, right, in South America, he would play like he was playing from the gaming house, right? He when he first came by and he started, because Hector's from San Juancho, which is a relatively poor part of Lima, or San Juan de Lurigancho is what they say, San Juancho for short. And he used to go to the gaming houses to play most of the time because his PC at home was not up to par back then. He didn't have any tournament winnings. And in the gaming house, it's very common for him to like they would have like parties, and he would just be playing during the parties, and you get to meet a lot of people in the scene. And Hector's a very talkative guy, so he would talk up to them and like go shake their hand, whatever. He was very good at conversations. And there was one party I remember, there was like a small little like tournament that I think Infamous did. It was a small, very very small like local LAN. But because Infamous has good contacts, they asked for a couple of favors. That's one of my friends, Imperius, top tier Spanish caster, probably the OD Pixel, the capitalist of the Spanish scene, right? And they asked him, hey, can you come over? Can you cast this tournament for us? And back then, Hector was already the talk of the town, right? He was starting to make waves in the scene, like, hey, he's starting to actually be good. He's showing himself. People were starting to respect him. And while Imperius was casting, he was just like talking to some people, and he hears a voice from behind him, and it's Hector. He doesn't know this, of course. And there goes like, hello. I mean, obviously in Spanish, right? But hello, Imperius. Is that you? I'm such a big fan. I'm such a big fan. I just want to shake your hand. And Imperius turns around and is like, what are you talking about? I'm a fan of yours. I'm casting your game. What are you talking about? Come give me a hug. And then they embraced and it became much chiller afterwards. But I think this shows the humility that a lot of the players have. They would walk up to a caster and ask him, hey, can I have your autograph? Could you shake my hand? It'd be a great honor. And we as casters, our job is to literally make you shine. I always think that speaks volumes about Hector, about him as a person, right? And how why he's so liked in the SA scene.
Playing Pudge.
Played like, again, just bristleback with hook.
Bristleback with hook. I like it. Well, bristleback with hook. Oh, well.
Okay, let's talk about Dota first. I think in playstyle, one of the things SA has is that they love to farm. I know that they're known for like their wacky, super aggressive playstyle, but that's not really what they are. If you actually look at their teams, they are incredible farmers. It is not a surprise that you get some people like Hector or Pacaz, who's also made a name for himself, or now Parker. Like you get any carry from SA, and like they're pretty good. They're pretty good, at least in the farming department. It's like Black, as he was criticized before because he could only hit creeps, and that was his thing. Imagine a whole region full of Blacks. That's what it was. That's what SA is. They just absolutely love hitting creeps, and mid laners you get it too. Like that Mago is a big creep farmer. You get a lot of this kind of like really greedy and also self-centered playstyles, particularly from 1s and 2s. And as a result, the 3, 4s, and 5s of the region have to adapt to this hyper-aggressive style because there's no other way of creating space. And because of this incredible shift, they don't play as much 5-man Dota as you would say like Europe, for example, plays. That's very known for that, or even China would play. They very much play as if each person is in the role. And there's something really wonderful to watch because you can tell sometimes, if you actually watch really closely in the team fights, they're not coordinated. Like they're all doing what they should do, and that's why they're good, but they are not coordinating as a team as you'd see European or Chinese teams do. They coordinate by some sort of magic that they all understand what everyone else is supposed to do. And I talked to like Beast Ghost and Thunder about this, and they both told me this. Like their comms are not always as hectic as we imagine them. It's more along the lines of they just trust each other a lot. And that style of Dota of like 5 individuals that come together to form a team and still have this unison because of a shared understanding of Dota, I think is quite unique compared to a lot of the other regions who try to literally do the team building, right? I don't think you see this very often in other regions that try to actually get the team to communicate and do the team building. SA doesn't see that as much. And that defines a very unique play style for them. That's why I think they also did so well in the Singapore Major, one of the best majors for farming, where you Battle Furies everywhere. Thunder Predator obviously did incredibly well in that major for reasons that make sense if you look at it from that lens. And in terms of why they're different, the community is different, I think that honestly most communities I would say are kind of isolated in Dota. I think we try to talk about the international community, but most of the time international means European and American, North American. Because I also find that SEA is similar, now that I live there, that a lot of people feel isolated from the international community. Like they can go and talk to them, but there's whole Facebook groups of SEA Dota that have nothing to do with the international community on Reddit, right? And Chinese Dota is similar. So I feel like SA just follows in their footsteps. They just have less investment. So SA is they have their own Facebook groups. They have their own, their own social media in general because they also use Facebook, but other social media as well. They speak their own language. They have their own influencers. They have their own whole subculture of Dota. Also very local because it's mostly centered on Lima, at least in Peru. But they're the only region compared to SCA in China that are not as self-sufficient. So it's this kind of weird dichotomy of a region that doesn't need help, and you do need to help them out with international investment, but at the same time doesn't have the tools to actually go and reach out for it. So you've seen people quite developing from nothing. That is a very unique unique story to tell. That's why there's so many nice success stories in SA that I feel like also are similar in SCA that you don't find in Europe or in North America.
Points in it. Now has just enough here for the ultimate, but he finds himself immediately bashed by the slaughter. Xiao Ba still alive. The assassinate ultimately proves to be superfluous because Koikva had the.
I mean, obviously I'm biased. I'm gonna say they're gonna win. No, I don't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Beast Coast and Thunder are to me like literally a flip of the coin. They could be bottom, like they bomb out group stages immediately, or they could be top 8, top 6 easily. Like both teams have a lot of really, really good players, mechanically skilled, and they're young as well. They have no issues theoretically. People will accuse them of a lack of versatility. I feel like that's not really the case. At least when I talk to them, they have a wide pool of heroes that they're confident with, at least for Thunder and Beast Coast. But the issue sometimes happens, honestly, psychologically. The lack of coaches that speak Spanish makes it difficult for Thunder and Beast Coast to find coaches that can help them with that aspect. Because like Fear is great as a coach, and Fear's a really good coach to speak because he's the coach for Thunder. He's a really good coach to teach him drafting and teach him about Dota and stuff like that. That's great. But as a psychological coach, not being able to speak that language, or more importantly, not having your mother tongue, it's tough. You're not going to be able to mesh with the team as well as some other coaches would do, and that's always an issue in SA. For SG, I actually have a lot of faith in SG. I think they're very different to Thunder Predator and Beast Coast because they've already solved those mentality issues beforehand. I think the players are incredibly talented. I think they're often slept on. People forget that this SG or similar SG was a SG that beat Secret and almost beat EG when they were good. I mean, they're still good, but like when they were actually at the top form as well in the KF Major.
Ready to go. But it's another smoke from Liquid. They're expecting this, and good positioning from Mikke. He's going to throw the hook. He's going to find Ame. They're on top of this Koikva, though. But
I mean, it's tough. It's hard because I don't have anyone that I can ask for advice on this topic. Like, how many people do you know that switch languages as a caster, right? So I don't know. Like, oftentimes I find myself with problems that I don't have anyone that I can just go and say, hey, how did you solve this? You know, out of the top tier casters. Because most of the up and coming casters, their issue happens with experience, lack of experience. They have some ticks they have to solve. But for me, a lot of the issues I have to fix is like, you don't do this in English culture, for example, you know? One of the things I struggle with in English casting a lot is how fast I speak, as you notice right now. This is me speaking at my normal speed, by the way. I'm relaxed right now. But when I cast, I try to do it as slow as possible because I know that I sound like a machine gun of words, and people will often criticize that. And I think fairly enough, because English is not that fast of a language, or it's not meant to be spoken like you're on like you're you're on coffee, you're caffeinated. So a lot of the issues I have come from me both breaking down the cultural barriers, like talking to English speakers and like Americans, British people, etc., and trying to understand more how they perceive certain things. Like a lot of people perceive me as nervous because I move my hands a lot. Not the case. It's just how Hispanics speak. But when I talk to British people, they gave me that perspective, and so I work on that, and I lower my hand movements. I will work on my pronunciation a bit more because most people judge me much more on my accent because I'm foreign than they would say an American. So I try to be very clear with my words, enunciate a lot. If I use big vocabulary, I make sure that I pronounce it properly because people judge me more on those kind of things. And with my speed, I also work on that a lot. So what I do is I read a lot of books. I read manga as well. That nothing to do with it, just to brag. No, but I try to enhance my vocabulary. I have a vocabulary list. I try to live in English as much as possible. At least when I made the shift for the first 6 months, I only lived in English, except when talking to my girlfriend. And I also work hard, like at least 1 or 2 hours a day, working on both speech, tone, and cadence, and then speed. Right, like reading. I don't know. I read a lot of Shakespeare. I'm a big fan of Shakespeare, so I will read his sonnets out loud to me, and I'll record myself, and I'll say, "All right, let's fix that pronunciation a bit. Let's do that. Let's do that, and let's tweak and let's tweak." And you tweak endlessly until you finally get the finished product, which I'm still not even close to. And then I also listen to a lot of criticism. I always try to go whenever there's shout out threads of me. I don't know if you've seen it, but I try to go and say, hey guys, I know that you guys think I was good, but I was not good. Tell me why. Because I'm not interested in people saying, oh, I loved your cast. Like I'm glad, those kind of things, they make my day. They really do. But I really like when people take the time out of their day to go and criticize me and go and say, hey, this I don't like. Because in many cases, you think it's because I'm new to the scene, but the majority of the things is I have ticks from the Spanish cast or things that I've learned from another language that I don't know are bad or I don't know are considered bad to you. And when you teach me these things, when you go and say, hey, I don't like this, or hey, consider this, it's like I'm opening my eye to a different culture, and it's very, very, very useful. So that's what I do. I try to work really hard on my casting. I take a lot of pride in it. I don't think I'm that good yet, but I will get there. And I always try to make sure that there's nobody in the world that could be harmed by it. That's my baseline. I want it so that everyone can go and say, I don't want to have the stream on mute. At least it's acceptable. that's my goal. That's what I try to do. So that's what I concentrate on with the swap, frankly.
Insania as well, closing the door. They should be able to at least pick up here Jin Q as the shrapnel finds Xiao Ba. And Swashbuckle to put him down. And Mickey there now with his 9th stuff.
Sure. My weakness, that was an easy one. No, I think my strength, again, this doesn't come from me. This is something that people have told me. I don't see this as much, but most people like my energy, they say. I think maybe because I really like Dota and it shows, or because I'm a very expressive person, or because of the culture I come from. I'm not really sure, but people like the energy I put into cast. They don't feel like, I don't often get criticized for fake hype because they know I'm not faking it. Like, I like that. When people criticize my fake hype, when they think I'm getting too excited, they will say, hey, try to stave off your excitement. They will never think I'm faking it, which I appreciate. It seems genuine. So I think that's a strength, combined to my cultural diversity that I bring to hosting and stuff. I bring an international perspective that I think a lot of the American and British talent don't have as much, because they just haven't had to pierce that barrier. They haven't had to live in multiple cultures. And I try to be very inclusive of a lot of cultures that don't usually get that in international casts. Because I think a lot of cultures are not represented, and I try to help that by making also jokes and references, stuff like that. And my weakness, I really think it's my speed and my tone. I think I go loud a bit too quickly because I have a massive range, which if you ask my girlfriend, she will tell you. I used to, when I used to do theater, I used to not need to project because naturally I project when I speak. And my theater teacher told me, I was like, this is really good for theater, but when you have the mic right here, it's breaking your ears. So I'm trying to work on that, both with equalizers and also by obviously practicing my tone, and then trying to speak slower. The more tired I get, especially when I do long days of casting, I just default to the state of speaking like a machine gun, and it's bothersome to a lot of people, especially when you're like, it's like 12 p.m. and usually the caster's like, well, something's happening here on the map. He's tired. He's done 12 hours of casting a day. And in my case, like, well, if you actually consider this, and then you start hearing that, you're like, what the fuck is happening? Why is he more excited the more tired he gets? And that's something I'm trying to really, really fix in my casts. I try to work hard so that doesn't happen as much.
Who's going to go in first? Oh, Rolling Thunder. Taiga's going to go out first. But
to cast TI, yes. To cast TI 10, no. Because I just don't think I'm ready, to be honest, to deliver the TI. I mean, I don't know if my quality is necessarily ready. It's hard to judge that, but I think at least I should get an upper division gig or a major gig before I get to do a TI. I think that's how it should go. It should be more of a ladder. I wouldn't want to skip any steps in the ladder because that would make me feel like I didn't really earn it, and I wouldn't like that. I've worked on this too long for me to get to TI, which has been my dream since I was 14, to be able to cast a TI, and then go to TI and feel like I didn't deserve it. I would hate that. So I would like to do the steps. I would like to go through the whole process.
Just blinking forward and trying to go for the kill here on the enemy mid laner. Not going to find it though. This time he's a bit too tanky. He seems to be forced out of safety. They are losing bottom. This push from the IO anti-mage working well for them as those blink fragments are actually being used.
Shout out to my mom. No. I mean, yeah, I guess you can follow me on social media on... Sorry, that does not look good. Look, please take that. At Mr. Alva Plus, that's the one. At Mr. Alva Plus on Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, where I mostly post the recipes, honestly, I don't actually post anything else. Alva Plus, if you want to learn to cook in Spanish. And then I also have a Facebook page, especially for those of you that come from the SEA region. I mostly post that in Spanish because also for SA, but you're welcome to follow me. It's Mr. Alva Plus on Facebook. But in general, just keep watching Dota. I don't care if you watch me. I don't care if you watch other casters, but keep watching Dota. I don't want this game to die. So please do that.